Imagine this. You're a small business owner just trying to make ends meet when a customer walks in who seems off. Something about them makes your instincts scream no. Maybe it's the way they avoid eye contact, the nervous energy radiating off them, or the way they keep glancing at the security cameras. You've served hundreds of people, but this one feels different. So, against your better judgment, you refuse service. And that's when everything changes. Because what you don't know, what you can't know, is who this customer really is. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll find out the shocking truth that flipped this store owner's world upside down. Now, I know what you're thinking. Asterisk, why would a store owner refuse service? Was it discrimination? A misunderstanding? Or something much darker? Asterisk, trust me, I've been there too, watching a story like this and thinking, there's gotta be more to it. And guess what? There is. But before we get to the jaw-dropping twist, let's talk about you. Yeah, you. The person watching this right now. You clicked on this video because you crave real, raw, unfiltered stories, the kind that make your heart race and your mind spin. The kind that leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about people. And that's exactly what I'm about to give you. Meet David, a hardworking convenience store owner in a quiet Midwest town. He's the kind of guy who knows his regulars by name, who always rounds down the total for struggling parents, who believes in second chances. But when a stranger in a hoodie walks in one rainy night, David's gut tells him something isn't right. The man doesn't speak, doesn't smile, just shoves a crumpled bill across the counter and points at the beer behind the glass. And that's when David makes a split-second decision that will haunt him. Asterisk, I'm sorry, I can't serve you. Asterisk, the man freezes. The air in the store goes thick with tension. And then he laughs. Not a nervous laugh. Not an angry laugh. A laugh that sends chills down David's spine. Asterisk, you have no idea who I am, do you? Boom. That's where we'll pause. Because if you're like me, your brain is already racing. Asterisk, who is this guy? What does he want? Why did David refuse him? Asterisk, and most importantly, what happens next? Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you hanging. But here's the thing, this story isn't just about a store owner and a mysterious customer. It's about judgment. It's about the snap decisions we make every day and how they can change our lives in ways we never see coming. And by the end of this video, you'll never look at a stranger the same way again. So here's the deal. Hit that like button if you're already hooked, drop a comment with your wildest theory about who this customer really is, and most importantly, don't click away. Because in just a few seconds, the truth will be revealed, and trust me, you won't see it coming. David had always prided himself on being a good judge of character. After all, running a convenience store in a town where everyone knew everyone meant he'd seen his fair share of troublemakers, drifters, and folks down on their luck. But this guy? There was something different about him, something that set off alarm bells in David's mind the second he stepped through the door. Maybe it was the way his hoodie was pulled just a little too low, shadowing his face even under the harsh fluorescent lights. Or the way his hands shook slightly as he reached for his wallet, fingers brushing against something bulky in his pocket. David had seen enough in his years behind the counter to know when someone was hiding something, and this man was hiding a lot. The truth was, David had been on edge all week. Just 3 days earlier, there'd been a break-in at the hardware store 2 blocks over, shattered glass, stolen cash, and a security camera that mysteriously cut out right before the thief's face came into view. The police had no leads, but the rumor mill in town was spinning wild theories. An out-of-town gang, a disgruntled employee, or maybe even someone much closer to home. David had spent the last few nights double-checking his locks, his own security system blinking ominously in a corner, like a silent watchdog. And now, here was this stranger, standing in a store, laughing like he knew something David didn't. But here's the thing, David wasn't just some paranoid shopkeeper. He had reasons to be cautious. His younger brother, Mike, had gotten mixed up with the wrong crowd a few years back, and the fallout had nearly torn their family apart. Even now, David couldn't shake the memory of late-night phone calls, hushed arguments, and the gnawing fear that one day, Mike's bad decisions would come knocking on his door. Was this stranger connected? A friend of Mike's? A debt collector? Or worse, Someone who'd heard about the store's recent cash influx after the weekend's lottery ticket rush? The man's laughter died down, replaced by a slow, deliberate smirk as he leaned across the counter. Asterisk, you really don't recognize me, do you? Asterisk, his voice was low, almost amused, but there was an edge to it, like a predator circling its prey. David's pulse spiked. He did sound familiar, but the pieces weren't clicking. Had he seen him before? At the gas station? The diner? Or was this some kind of twisted mind game? Then, the man reached into his pocket. David's breath hitched. Was he reaching for a weapon? A badge? A phone? But instead, he pulled out a crumpled photograph and slid it across the counter. The image was worn at the edges, faded with time, but the faces were unmistakable. David's stomach dropped, because staring back at him were two people he hadn't seen together in over a decade, his brother and himself. The room spun. The photograph, the break-in, the way this man was looking at him like he'd been waiting for this moment for years. None of it made sense. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just some random customer. This was personal. And whatever came next, David wasn't ready for it. So tell me, what would you do in this situation? Would you run? Call the cops? Or would you stand your ground and demand answers? Because trust me, the truth is even more shocking than you think, and it's coming right up. But before we get there, let me ask you this. How well do you really know the people around you? Because sometimes the biggest threats aren't strangers at all. They're the ghosts from your past you thought were long gone. David's fingers trembled as he gripped the edge of the counter, the photograph staring back at him like a relic from a life he'd tried desperately to forget. The man's smirk deepened, as if he could see the memories flooding David's mind. The fights, the betrayals, the night Mike disappeared without a trace. But before David could demand an explanation, the store's back door creaked open, and the sound of hurried footsteps cut through the silence. Both men turned just as Lisa, David's longtime employee and the closest thing he had to family these days, burst into the room, her face pale, her phone clutched in a white-knuckled grip. "David, you need to see this," she whispered, her voice shaking. She shoved her phone toward him, the screen displaying a text message from an unknown number, just 2 words. Asterisk, remember me? Asterisk, and beneath it another grainy photo, this one even older. A group of teenagers standing in front of an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, their faces young but unmistakable. David's breath caught in his throat. Because there, in the center of the frame, stood Mike, his arms slung around the shoulders of the very same man now standing in the store. But that wasn't the part that made David's blood run cold. No, it was the third figure in the photo, a girl with fiery red hair and a defiant glare. Emily, his high school sweetheart. The one who vanished the same summer Mike did, leaving behind nothing but rumors and a town that never stopped whispering. The man in the hoodie let out a low chuckle, as if he'd been waiting for this exact moment. "Yeah, that's right," he said, tapping the photo in David's hand. Asterisk, we all remember. And now? It's payback time. Asterisk, Lisa's eyes darted between them, confusion and fear twisting her features. Asterisk, David, what the hell is going on? Asterisk, but David couldn't answer. Because the pieces were finally starting to click into place. The break-in, the stranger's cryptic taunts, the sudden reappearance of a past he'd buried long ago. This wasn't random. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone was digging up old ghosts, and they weren't just coming for him. Across town, at that very moment, Emily's younger brother, Jake, now a detective with the local PD, was staring at his own phone, his screen lit up with the same chilling message. The photo was slightly different, though. In his version, someone had drawn a thick red X over Mike's face, and beneath it, scrawled in handwriting he hadn't seen in 15 years, were 3 words, asterisk, tell the truth. Asterisk, Jake's stomach turned, because he knew that handwriting. He'd seen it 1,000 times in old love letters and birthday cards. It was Emily's. But here's the thing, Emily had been declared dead a decade ago. Her car was found abandoned near the state line, her belongings still inside, no note, no body, no closure. The case went cold, and Jake had spent years trying to move on. So who the hell was sending this now?
And why?
Was it some sick joke? A twisted revenge plot? Or worse, had Emily been alive this whole time, watching, waiting, biding her time until the perfect moment to resurface? Back in the store, the hooded man took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Asterisk, you thought you could just walk away, huh? Pretend like none of it ever happened. Asterisk, David's mind raced. What was he talking about? The night Mike left? The fight they'd had? Or something darker? Something David had spent half his life trying to outrun? The man reached into his pocket again, and this time, David flinched, bracing for the worst. But instead of a weapon, he pulled out a small, rusted key, the kind that might open a locker, a diary, or maybe even a long-forgotten safe. She kept receipts, the man said, his grin widening. Asterisk, and now? So will I. The store's bell jingled as the door swung open again, and all three of them turned to see Jake stride in, his badge glinting under the lights, his expression unreadable. His eyes locked onto the key in the stranger's hand, and for a split second, something like recognition flickered across his face. Well, Jake said, his voice dangerously calm. Asterisk, looks like the gang's all here. The air in the room thickened, the weight of unsaid words and buried secrets pressing down on all of them. Because one thing was clear, this wasn't just about David anymore. This was about all of them. And whatever truth was about to come out, it was going to destroy someone. So tell me, who do you trust in this story? The store owner with a past he can't escape? The detective hiding his own demons? Or the stranger who seems to know exactly where all the bodies are buried? Stick around, because the next twist is going to change everything, and trust me, you won't see it coming. The tension in the room was so thick you could choke on it. David's knuckles white against the counter, Jake's fingers hovering near his holster, the stranger's grin never fading, like this was all some sick game he'd been waiting years to play. Then, just as Jake opened his mouth to demand answers, Lisa stepped forward, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. Asterisk, enough. Asterisk, the word landed like a gunshot. All eyes snapped to her as she reached into her apron pocket and pulled out an old, battered flip phone, the kind no one had used in over a decade. Her hands didn't shake. Her voice didn't waver. And in that moment, David realized something terrifying. He didn't recognize the woman standing in front of him at all. You were never supposed to see that photo, David, Lisa said, her tone colder than he'd ever heard it. She flipped the phone open, revealing a single contact saved under the name E. Asterisk, but you just couldn't let the past stay buried, could you? Asterisk, David's blood turned to ice.
E.
Emily. The pieces slammed together with brutal clarity. Lisa's sudden appearance in town 2 years ago, her insistence on working the night shifts, the way she always seemed to know things about his life he'd never shared. She hadn't just found this job. She'd chosen it. Chosen him, the stranger, now clearly an accomplice, let out a dark laugh as Lisa tossed the phone to Jake. Go ahead, she dared. Asterisk, tell him what you found in the evidence locker last week. The part you didn't put in the official report. Asterisk, Jake's jaw tightened, his fingers gripping the phone like it might burn him. For the first time, the detective looked scared. David could only watch in horror as the man he'd trusted for years, the one who'd promised to help find Mike all those months ago, swallowed hard and whispered, Asterisk, the blood in Emily's car? It wasn't hers. The room spun. Because if it wasn't Emily's blood, whose was it? The answer hit David like a punch to the gut. Mike. His brother hadn't run away. He hadn't abandoned his family. He'd been murdered, and someone had staged Emily's disappearance to cover it up. But who? Jake? Lisa? The grinning stranger, now leaning against the snack aisle like this was all some twisted show? Lisa took a step closer, her eyes locked onto David's. Asterisk, you really don't remember that night, do you? Asterisk, she murmured, almost pitying. Asterisk, the bonfire. The fight. The way Mike begged you to just walk away. Asterisk, David's stomach lurched. Flashes of memory erupted in his mind. Broken glass, screaming, Mike's face streaked with tears. But the rest was a black hole, lost to whatever he'd drunk or smoked to numb the pain. Had he done something unforgivable? Had Jake helped him hide it? Was that why Emily vanished, not because she was dead, but because she'd seen too much? The stranger finally pushed off the shelves, digging into his pocket once more. This time, he tossed a faded Polaroid onto the counter, a snapshot of 4 teenagers, their faces smeared with dirt and blood, standing over a shallow grave. David's knees nearly buckled, because the 4th person in that photo, the one holding the shovel, it wasn't Jake. It wasn't the stranger. It was him. Lisa's voice dropped to a whisper. Emily didn't send these messages, David. I did. And now. She reached behind a counter, her hand closing around the baseball bat he kept for emergencies. It's time you paid for what you took from us. So here's the question no one saw coming. What if the victim was never the victim at all? What if the person you've been pitying this whole time was actually the monster? And most importantly, how far would you go to keep a secret buried for 15 years? Don't click away. Because the final piece of this puzzle, it's going to destroy everything you think you know. David's breath came in ragged gasps as he stared at the Polaroid, the image searing into his mind like a brand. The faces in that photo, his own included, were twisted with something worse than fear. It was guilt, the kind that festers in the dark, the kind that claws its way back, no matter how deep you bury it. Lisa's grip tightened around the baseball bat, her knuckles bleaching white, and for the first time, David saw the raw, unfiltered rage in her eyes. Not just anger, but grief. The kind that doesn't fade. The kind that changes people. He'd seen it in the mirror for years without understanding why. Now he knew. The stranger, Emily's brother, he realized with a jolt, stepped forward, blocking the exit, his voice a low growl. You've got 2 choices, David. You walk out of here with us right now, no cops, no lies, and you tell the whole damn truth about what happened to Mike and Emily. Or, he nodded toward Jake, whose hand hadn't left his holster. You let your buddy here arrest you, and we all find out how fast a small-town cop can make evidence disappear again. Jake's face went ashen, his eyes darting between them like a cornered animal. David's stomach twisted, because that look confirmed everything Jake had known. Maybe not all of it, but enough. Enough to help cover it up. Enough to lie. Lisa took another step, the bat now resting against her shoulder, her voice eerily calm. You don't remember, do you? That night at the quarry? Mike begging you to stop before you ruined everything. David's vision blurred, flashes of memory surging like a storm, a bottle smashing, Emily screaming, Mike lunging at him, shouting words that didn't make sense then but did now. She's pregnant, you idiot. The world tilted. Emily. Pregnant. The math lined up in a way that made his knees weak. Had Mike been trying to protect her? From him? Jake suddenly moved, his gun halfway out of its holster before the stranger slammed him against the snack rack, chips scattering like gunshots across the floor. Don't, the stranger hissed, pressing a knife to Jake's throat, a knife David recognized. Mike's old hunting blade, the one he'd sworn was lost years ago. You don't get to play hero now. Not after what you did. Jake's Adam's apple bobbed against the blade, his voice cracking. I didn't know they were gonna die, man. I thought we were scaring them. I thought. You thought. Lisa's laugh was hollow, broken. You helped bury them alive, Jake. You watched. David's legs gave out. He hit the floor hard, the weight of it all crushing him. Not just the memories, but the betrayal. Jake, his best friend since kindergarten, had been there that night, had participated. And now he was willing to let David take the fall to keep his badge, his freedom, his lies intact. The room spun, voices overlapping, Lisa's furious whispers, the stranger's threats, Jake's panicked denials. But one thought cut through the noise. There's no way out of this that doesn't destroy someone. Then, the bell above the door chimed again. Everyone froze. A little girl, no older than 8, her red hair braided down her back, stood in the doorway, her eyes wide as they landed on Lisa. Asterisk, Mom? Asterisk, she whispered. Asterisk, you said we were just getting snacks. Time stopped. Lisa's face shattered. The bat clattered to the ground. And David? David understood everything. That child was Emily's. Which meant, asterisk Mike's. Asterisk his. The little girl took a hesitant step forward, her gaze flicking to David, then to the Polaroid on the counter. Her nose wrinkled. Asterisk, that's the picture from Grandma's box. The one she said I couldn't look at. Silence. Then, the stranger let out a choked sound, his knife hand dropping. Asterisk, oh my God. You didn't know. Lisa's hands flew to her mouth, her entire body shaking. Because the truth was worse than revenge. Worse than justice. It was this, a child standing in the wreckage of a lie too big for any of them to survive. And David? He had one last choice to make. Tell her the truth about her father, what really happened to him, and destroy her forever. Or lie. Again. For the rest of his life. So, I'll ask you this. What would you do if the only way out was to break an innocent kid's heart? Could you live with it? Could you breathe with it? Don't go anywhere. Because the final act of the story, it's going to wreck you. The little girl's innocent question hung in the air like a detonator's final click, and in that heartbeat of silence, the entire world fractured. David's mind reeled. Asterisk Mike had a daughter. Asterisk a living, breathing piece of his brother that had been kept from him for nearly a decade. But before he could process the enormity of that, Jake suddenly lunged for the fallen baseball bat, his cop's instincts overriding his panic. Asterisk, nobody move. Asterisk, he barked, swinging the bat toward the stranger, Emily's brother, who still had the knife. But Lisa was faster. She snatched the Polaroid off the counter and thrust it toward her daughter, her voice breaking. Asterisk, this is your family, baby. These are the people who hurt us. The girl? Asterisk Sophia asterisk, her name was Sophia, David would later learn, reached for the photo with small, curious fingers. But the stranger snatched it away, his face twisted with something between fury and devastation. Asterisk, she's 8, Lisa. You were really gonna show her this? After everything? Asterisk, his knife clattered to the floor as he grabbed Lisa's arm, his voice dropping to a seething whisper. Asterisk, this wasn't the plan. We were supposed to make them pay, not traumatize her. David's chest tightened. Plan. The word echoed like a gunshot in a canyon. This wasn't some impulsive revenge scheme, it was calculated. Years in the making. And Lisa hadn't just stumbled into his life. She'd orchestrated it. Every late-night shift they'd worked together, every personal story she'd coaxed out of him, every time she'd comforted him about Mike's disappearance, it had all been a performance. Jake, sensing the shift, slowly lowered the bat, his cop brain clearly scrambling for control. Asterisk, okay, let's all just breathe. Asterisk, he said, his voice slick with desperation. Asterisk, Lisa, you know me. You know I didn't want any of this to happen. I tried to stop it that night. Bullshit. Asterisk. Asterisk, the stranger whirled on him, shoving him backward into a display of energy drinks that toppled like dominoes. Asterisk, you held the flashlight while they dug the grave, Jake. You watched Mike choke on dirt for 20 minutes before you finally pulled him out. And then what? You still covered it up. Sophia whimpered, pressing herself against the candy aisle, her wide eyes darting between the adults like they were monsters in a haunted house. David's heart shattered. He took a step toward her, hands raised, not to grab, but to protect. Asterisk, Sophia, it's okay. You're okay. Asterisk, he murmured, the lie tasting like ash. Because nothing about this was okay. Lisa let out a raw, broken sound. Asterisk, you don't get to talk to her. You don't get to look at her. Asterisk, she yanked a folded piece of paper from her back pocket and flung it at David. Asterisk, read it. Asterisk out loud. David's hands shook as he unfolded the letter, yellowed with age, the ink smudged but legible. Emily's handwriting. Asterisk, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. They'll say I ran away, but you know the truth. Jake promised he'd protect us, but he lied. David doesn't even remember what he did. Too drunk, like always. But Mike fought for us. And now they're going to kill him for it. Please, if you find this, take Sophia and run. Don't let them find her. Don't let her become another missing person no one cares about. The words hit like a sledgehammer. David's knees buckled. They'd been going to kill Mike that night, not just hurt him. Murder him. And Jake. Jake had been in on it.
But why?
What had Mike known that was worth killing him over? Then, like a final puzzle piece snapping into place, he remembered. The quarry wasn't just a party spot. It was where Jake's dad, the sheriff, had been dumping evidence for years. Stolen drugs.
Guns.
Money. Bodies. Mike had found out. And he'd threatened to go public. David's head snapped up, his eyes locking onto Jake's. You son of a bitch. He breathed. This was never about Emily. This was about your family's secrets. Jake's face went slack with panic. David, listen to me. But Sophia screamed. Because outside the store, sirens wailed. And the real nightmare began. The sheriff's cruiser skidded to a stop in front of the store, lights blazing. And Jake smiled. Game over, he whispered. So tell me, what do you do when the person who's supposed to protect you is the one holding the knife? When the truth is worse than you imagined, and the only way out is through? Don't you dare look away. Because the real betrayal? It's next. The sheriff's boots crunched on broken glass as he stepped into the store, his silhouette blocking the flashing red and blue lights like a storm cloud swallowing the sun. His gaze swept over the wreckage, the toppled shelves, the knife on the floor, Sophia trembling behind a rack of candy, before landing on Jake. No relief. No fatherly concern. Just cold, calculating fury. You had one job. The sheriff spat, his hand resting on his holstered gun. Clean up the mess. That's all you had to do. Jake's smile vanished. Dad, wait, they know. Oh, I know what they know. The sheriff's voice was eerily calm as he pulled his gun, but he didn't point it at David or the stranger. He aimed it at Lisa. Should have stayed gone, girl. Time slowed. David moved without thinking, lunging towards Sophia, shoving her behind the counter as the first gunshot cracked through the air. The stranger tackled Lisa to the ground, a spray of bullets peppering the wall where her head had been. Jake screamed, "Stop!" But the sheriff was already racking the slide for another shot, his eyes wild. 30 years I've kept this town quiet, he snarled. You think I'm letting some junkies kid ruin it now? David's hand closed around the baseball bat. This wasn't just about covering up a murder anymore. This was about erasing them, Sophia, Lisa, him, like they were nothing. Like Mike had been nothing. Rage burned through his veins as he charged, swinging the bat with every ounce of grief and guilt he'd carried for a decade. The sheriff turned. Too slow, and the bat connected with his wrist. A sickening snap. The gun clattered to the floor. But the sheriff laughed. You still don't get it, do you? He clutched his broken wrist, blood dripping between his fingers. Mike begged for his life that night. Said he'd take the secret to his grave. And you know what your hero brother did next? He grinned, teeth red. He lied for you. The words hit like a bullet. Because suddenly, David remembered. The quarry. The fight. Mike pinning him down, screaming, You killed her, you stupid bastard. The way David had sobbed. I didn't mean to. The fear in Mike's eyes as headlights cut through the trees. Jake and the sheriff. Come to help. Only they hadn't come to help. They'd come to silence him. And Mike? Mike had told one last lie to save his brother's life. It was me. He'd choked out, staring at the sheriff's gun. I pushed her. David tried to stop me. The sheriff's grin widened now, like he could see the memory tearing David apart. Your brother died protecting you. And you? You didn't even remember. A sob ripped from David's throat. He staggered back, the bat slipping from his hands. All these years, he'd thought he was the victim, that he'd lost everything. But Mike had given up everything for him. His freedom, his future, his daughter. Lisa's scream snapped him back to reality. The sheriff had the gun again, and he was aiming at Sophia. "No more loose ends," he hissed. But Jake moved faster. The gunshot was deafening. The sheriff collapsed, a dark stain blooming across his chest. Jake stood frozen, his own service weapon smoking in his hands, his face a mask of horror. Asterisk, I had to. Asterisk, he whispered. Silence. Then, Sophia darted out from behind the counter, not toward Lisa, but toward David, her small fists clutching his shirt. Asterisk, you knew my daddy? Asterisk, she asked, her voice trembling. And in that moment, David made a choice. He knelt, looking her in the eyes, asterisk Mike's asterisk eyes, and told the first honest truth of his life. Asterisk, yeah, kid. He was the best man I ever knew. Outside, more sirens wailed. But the real shock came next, because as the cops stormed in, Lisa pulled a voice recorder from her pocket, asterisk still running asterisk, and whispered 2 words to Jake that shattered whatever was left of his soul.
Got you.
The truth wasn't just out. It had been recorded. And the sheriff's empire? It was over. So, here's the twist you never saw coming. Asterisk, this wasn't revenge. It was justice. And the real mastermind? She'd been hiding in plain sight the whole time. But that's a story for next time. For now, tell me, asterisk, who do you think was really pulling the strings? Asterisk, drop your guesses below, and stay tuned. The aftermath was chaos. Flashing lights, shouted orders, the sheriff's body being zipped into a bag as Jake sat handcuffed in the back of a cruiser, staring blankly at the recorder in Lisa's hands. The damning evidence she'd spent years gathering wasn't just about that night at the quarry. It was everything. The drugs buried under the old mill, the bribes, the missing evidence from cases that had haunted the town for decades. The sheriff's empire crumbled in minutes, but the truth it revealed was heavier than any of them could have imagined. David watched from the sidewalk as Sophia clung to Lisa, her tiny face pressed into her mother's shoulder. The girl had Mike's stubborn chin, his sharp wit. He'd seen it when she'd glared at the paramedics trying to check her for scratches. Asterisk, I'm fine. Asterisk, she'd snapped, just like Mike used to. The resemblance was a knife to the heart, but for the first time in years, David didn't look away. He stepped forward, hands shaking, and held out the only thing he had left to give, the rusted key the stranger had tossed on the counter. Mike's locker at the old bus depot, he said hoarsely. Asterisk, he kept a journal. I think you should have it. Lisa's eyes flickered with something unreadable, not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the shadow of it. She took the key, her fingers brushing his for the briefest second. You could run, you know, she murmured. Asterisk, no one would blame you.
He almost laughed.
Run? Where? The ghosts were inside him now, part of his bones, his blood. Instead, he knelt in front of Sophia, ignoring the cops' suspicious stares. Your dad, he would have loved you so much, he said, voice cracking. And if you ever need anything asterisk, you come find me, okay? Sophia studied him with those 2 old eyes, then nodded once. Asterisk, okay. It wasn't absolution. It wasn't a fresh start. But it was something. The stranger, asterisk Ethan asterisk, he'd finally said his name was, clapped a hand on David's shoulder as the cops led him away for questioning. For what it's worth, he muttered, asterisk Mike talked about you all the time. Said you'd have made a hell of a dad. Asterisk then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd of reporters already swarming the scene. 3 days later, the town buzzed with headlines. Asterisk corrupt sheriff's crimes exposed asterisk cop's son confesses to cover-up, missing teens case reopened. But the real story was quieter, unfolding in a cramped apartment above the laundromat where Lisa sat on the floor with Sophia, flipping through Mike's water-stained journal. The pages were filled with sketches of a baby's face, lists of names, Jake circled in angry red, and one folded letter addressed to asterisk, whoever finds this. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead, it began. Asterisk, but if my kid's alive, tell her I didn't run. Tell her I fought. And tell David, hell, he'll figure it out. Lisa wiped her eyes, then reached for the envelope the deputy had dropped off that morning. David's signed deed to the store, transferred to Sophia's name. For her future, the note said. No conditions. No apologies. Just a man trying to do one decent thing with the wreckage he'd made. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall, covering the town's scars in something soft and temporary. Somewhere across town, a phone rang in an empty evidence room. A reporter's notebook flipped open to a fresh page. A key turned in a lock no one had opened in 15 years. And the truth? The truth kept growing. So tell me, Asterisk, what do you think was in that locker? Asterisk, and more importantly, Asterisk, whose story are you still missing? Because in a town like this, nothing ever really ends. Drop your theories below, and if you think you know the whole story, trust me, you don't.